Alright, hello everyone. Today I'm going to show you guys a quick little study demo on how to shade things in and add value to create form in some very practical ways. So we've learned a lot about form the last few days. We've learned a lot about how to create gradients and create different values. We've learned a whole lot about value, and now we're going to take the things that we learned and we're going to apply them to our drawings. And so I want to just show you some practical applications. We can talk about all the theory and all the different terms and definitions and look at stuff all day long, look at examples, but we won't really know until we actually look at it being enacted. So here I've got my two pencils that we're going to use, and you see I got my crazy leads on them. I sharpen them with my X-Acto knife. One side I flatten them out really good so that I can put that pencil down on its side and really get lots of shade really quick. You don't have to do that. You don't need this to complete the drawings. This is just something I like to do. If I'm going to be drawing, I like to draw fast. Okay, so I really love to paint, but this is a way of almost like painting with my pencil in a way. Or if I'm going to draw, I'll do something like this, or I'll use a piece of charcoal. So I really love charcoal. So let's get right to work, and I'll show you some practical ways to create forms with value. All right, so let's get started. You guys will be pleased to know that I figured out what was going on with my paper the other day. After having to watch my lesson with all my students, I saw that when I was sharpening my pencil, some of my shaving somehow got wedged up under the paper, and that's what was causing it to pick up darker values in other places. Oil from your skin will definitely do that. So you don't ever want to try and deliberately rub your drawing to create value. But that wasn't the case the other day. So that was a very novice, noob mistake I made. So let's go ahead and start off with my lighter pencil. I'm only using two pencils here. I'm using a 2B and a 6B. So this is a dark pencil and this is a super dark pencil. And so I'm going to create light values with my dark pencil here by bearing down really lightly. So I'm going to take and make a few shapes here. And I'm going to be very, very light here because I want to be able to get rid of these lines later on. Oops, that perspective's off. There we go. Actually, the perspective's probably really off. We'll learn perspective later on. But right now, I'm just going to wing it. So that's coming up very soon. All right, so right now I got three different forms here. I'm going to go ahead and put a very light line here so you can see what's going on. So this is a pyramid, this is a cone, this is a cube, and this is a cylinder. And so I'm going to show you how to apply value to each one of these to make it go from this flat, so like flat 2D shape. So you see these, they kind of look more like forms because I'm using line and perspective to create this illusion of depth. But it's not a very, it's kind of convincing, but it's not it's not very convincing. It's fixing to get a lot more convincing when I start adding values to this. All right, now I also have this right here, these contour lines help to create the illusion that this has form. It makes it look round because I made the line at the bottom round. But we're fixing to add to that. So we want to use every tool in our toolbox. We don't want to just use one tool, but value is going to be very, very important here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a light source. So let's say our light's coming in from over here. Now it's going to be hitting on this side first. So we're going to give it a very, very light value. All right, and then it's gonna be blocked on this side. So a geometric shape like this, I'll do my geometric shapes first. Now, my light's coming here, it's hitting here, it's being blocked on this side. So it can hit here, it's being blocked on this side, and that's all there is to the story. So geometric shapes can be very simple. There can be some strange anomalies going on with them, but for the most part, they're very simple. So what I'm doing right now is I'm getting rid of my lines. That's what I'm going to start focusing on right now. So I'm going to start building up values. You're not supposed to build up all your values at once. You're supposed to build them up slowly. That way you don't destroy the tooth of your paper. So I can take that 2B pencil and I can get almost as dark as I can with this pencil, this 6B, but I'll have to bear down harder. And when I bear down harder, I'm going to ruin the tooth of the paper, and so it's not going to have any texture anymore. So this side will have texture and this side won't, because I'll have flattened it all out. I'm going to go ahead and straighten this out. So I didn't draw it straight, but I'm going to correct it right now. So here I am. I'm going to add another pass of value here. I'm just going to keep adding value to this drawing. All right. Now what I want to do is I want to get rid of all the rest of my lines. For that, I'm going to use my eraser. And so I'm just going to use a regular old block eraser like you guys will have. I'm not going to use anything special that you don't have access to. So I'll go ahead and erase this out, because I don't need that anymore. And I don't need this line either. I don't want this to be defined by line. I want it to be defined by values. So we will have, can I get rid of line completely? No. Because what happens is I create an implied line, right? So here I'm going to refine my values over here on this side just a little. I'm going to get rid of my lines here. So this would be a triangle. Kind of has a matte finish. It's not particularly, see how I got a little boo-boo right there? I'll show you how to fix that. I'm just going to tap it with my eraser. You'll see that'll lift some of that lead off, but not all of it. Okay, now I got rid of my boo-boo. There we go. So that's our pyramid. And it is geometric. All right. Now we'll go to our next geometric shape. So let's say our light source. I'm going to go ahead and write LS here. Light source. So this one right here is geometric. This one right here is geometric. And this is our light source right here. And so our light's going to be hitting down here. And so what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to shade around this square. See how I'm getting rid of the lines on the outside? Because I want this side to be completely bright. Because our light's hitting here so hard that it's creating a highlight, and it is washing this out. Just like it does in the, just like it does in your eyes. If I lay my pencil over here, I can get a lot more value faster. I kind of lose some of that hard edge control that I had with the edge of my pencil. This is a lot like painting. You see, if I lean it over on the side and cut across, I still don't lose that much control. You see how straight that was? So I don't have a line anymore. I have an implied line right there. And when I get done, I want this all to be implied line. So we're just going to have a little swatch here. All right, so this is our This is our environment. It's going to be this very dark place. Who knows? Who knows what's going on here? So right here, we're not going to shade this because that light's hitting it and washing it out. All right. But we are going to have some light here. So light's hitting here. It's being blocked slightly here. It'll be blocked even more over here. All right. So I'm going to switch to this pencil here. Let's see if I can't line this over on my flat side and get lots of lead down here all at once. See how fast that is? That's why I like that. And it reminds me of painting because you're not using that little point and trying to hang on to all that control. I like to loosen up a little bit. Let the qualities of the medium and the paper and the utensils, whatever medium you're using, let that shine through in your work and let it be expressive. So you can experiment with that. You don't have to, right? So what if that's not your personality? Is that being expressive if you're doing something that goes against your personality? Not really, right? So we want to be true to ourselves, but right now we're learning. We're just trying to learn what we like and what we can do. Because who knows, you might actually change what you like. And so right now, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to change. There we go. I'm going to change the shape of this. And then, so this side, light's hitting the hardest. This side, it's being blocked a little. This side's being blocked a lot. So that's what we want to think about. Where's our light coming from? And how's it going to be affected? I don't expect you to be 100% perfectly accurate with this. It's okay if you're not. I want you to start attempting to think about this, right? A light's going to behave differently in all kinds of environments. It's like predicting the weather. It's such a complicated thing because there's so many variables. What are all the objects surrounding it? What kind of moisture levels do they have? All these other kind of variables. What kind of daylight do we have? What kind of light source do we have? All that stuff's going to affect this. So predicting it perfectly, unless you're in a sterile environment, is going to be very, very difficult. All right, here we go. I'm going to come create my very dark edges here that are going to give me that implied line. All right, let's try to make some more passes on this. All right, so my light is hitting here. It's being blocked a little here. It's being blocked a lot right there because we're getting a little light just because of the angle of this light source. It's coming in something like that. And then that means that my shadow is going to be cast in that direction because we're going to be blocking light over here. So let's say my cast shadow is something like this. Your cast shadows, a lot of times going to be a very dark shadow. So that's what we're going to do. And even though it may not be this dark, but we're going to play it up a little. Right? So it's okay to use a little creative license too. You want enough reality to bring your viewer in, but you also have a little creative license. You're not a slave to reality, right? You're not. At least you're not a slave to the naturalistic view of reality, where you're thinking, oh, well, this is the way it looks with my naked eye. This must be all the truth there is to it. But we'll discuss this later when we get to realism. There's a lot more to being real than what something looks like. All right, so that's our cast shadow running off of our little image here. This is our picture plane, this little swash of value. So right here where I come to the edge, I'm ending it. So it depends on the angle of the light, how far that cast shadow is going to be thrown. Remember, cast means to throw. So this is our thrown shadow. So here we go. We've got a nice little cube here. Oops, my eraser messed us up here. This eraser ruined our work of art. It's okay. There are ways I can fix that, but I don't know if I care enough to. But all right. So now we have this cube being depicted with value, not with line. All right? So now, let's go on to our organic shapes. They're going to be a little more difficult. All right, so I'm going to lay down a patch of value here. This is a great, I'm going to do this the way that, I would recommend you do this if you're not super experienced, which most of you in Art 1 are not going to be. But, there are those people who really focus on this, and this is their thing. And so they're going to try a little harder, and they're going to know a little more. All right, so we're going to give it a base value. That's our base value. And we're going to try to get rid of our line here. We don't need that line anymore. So I may end up accidentally taking a little bit of my value away, and I'll have to come back and add it back. All right, there we go. I think we've gotten rid of our value here our line here that we didn't want. So now I'm going to come add some darks. So if my light is coming over here again, this is my light source. If it's coming more at this angle, we're going to get a little bit of shadow over here. If it's coming more directly from the side, we're going to get not as much here. But I'm going to say it's coming, it's hard to draw this on flat 2D paper, but I'm going to say it's coming this way. So you can't really tell that by looking at it, but I'll show you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my highlight right here. Really regretting using this eraser now. This is not the best block eraser. All right, so maybe I'll just have to punch up my darks around it a little bit to give it the right effect. So that's our highlight, supposedly. So we'll make the rest of this thing a little darker just to compensate for our very dark highlight. I may switch to another eraser and clean this up here in a minute. So I'm gonna start punching in my shadow. If it's light's hitting here, it's gonna bend a little and then it's gonna be blocked here. So I'm gonna punch in my darks. And then I'm gonna start putting in my gradient. And so you can do that several ways. You can come in here and add a little darker patch of value, just like when we were creating our value scale. And then I come in here and get a little darker even than that. And I can switch to my dark pencil. Get even darker than that. Wow, look at that rich dark. That's what we want. That's what we want. That's the kind of value we want. We want this kind of contrast. And so you remember what we do is we come here on the side. I'm going to flip this real quick. So because this is easier for my hand to do. So I don't have to keep that paper that way. So I'm going to come just this side of the line. Just like I did with my shaded sphere now. So we did just like our value scale. Now we're going to do just like our shaded sphere. I'm going to come just this side of that lighter value here. Just on the lighter value. And I'm just going to keep teasing this and lightly adding lead over here. And fanning it back out at different amounts. Sometimes I stay pretty close to that line. Sometimes I get further away. Now you can't tell where this value fades into that one. I'm going to go ahead and pull some of this up. Somehow that got extremely dark. There we go. Now I got to do the same thing over here where I made this other patch of value. I got to stay just on this lighter side and start teasing out the values. Sometimes I go way over here, sometimes I stay close to that line. I'm just teasing these values out. All right, Now I've faded from here to here pretty seamlessly. Now it's time to switch to my lighter pencil probably. Now I want to come over here to this lighter side and do the same exact thing. I'll stay on the lightest side and I'll start going back and forth, teasing that out and just laying on lead ever so slightly, lightening up more and more as I get to that highlight till it eventually fades to the highlight. Okay. And so there we have it. And what are we going to have? We're going to have that cast shadow. So we'll have the cast shadow on all of these. There's going to be a cast shadow going in that same direction as the... We're going to have a cast shadow here. In the same direction as our light source. That's the direction the light's traveling. That's the way we want to think about it. You can trace it out with your finger if you need to. Say, here's where it is. Roughly. We don't know how long and crazy this shadow is going to be. But you see here? See how it's creating that difference there? All right, I'm going to get rid of our little crazy line I've got going on over here. I don't know why I did that. Sometimes I'll just do stuff. All right, and then we're going to go to our cylinder. So once again, we've got our light source. We will have a little bit of value on this side. We're going to start off with a kind of a gray again as our neutral value. I'm going to leave kind of a highlight here. I'm going to finish my shading my value out here. Let me use the bigger side of my pencil here so I don't take all week. You can get rid of my line. I don't need that anymore. Because now value is distinguishing what I see and what I don't. Okay, light's going to be hitting up at the top really strong. That highlight's going to be really strong. It might even be further over to the left. But the way to fix that when you're drawing is just move your light source over. Is that cheating? All right. No one knows, right? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start adding in a really dark on this side. Then I'm going to come in and darken up a little more over here. I still want it to be pretty dark, but not as dark as my darkest shadow over here. And then I'm going to darken this up. Maybe I'll use this one. So I'll put a darker value here. So once again, we're doing that kind of value scale technique. Darken this up a little. So I want these to be distinguishably different. And then we'll come back and we'll change them. All right. Once again, I'm going to come over here to just this side and I'm going to start adding dark value to it a little bit at a time. Now I'm starting to get that gradient, right? Light is bending until it can't bend any longer and then it gets blocked. I'll move over to my lighter pencil now. Come just to this side of my darker value, so I'll come over to the lighter value. And I'm going to start teasing that out. So I got a little dark right there. Remember, we can just tap that and bring it back up if we're careful. There's no reason to start over. And then we just kind of fade into our highlight. Very, very lightly. Now, clean up our edges. If I can even do that with this eraser. Our shadow is going to be coming over here. And that's our cast shadow. All right. So there we have it. I'm just going to get my other eraser real quick and kind of fix some of these little oddities for you. All right. Do I carry one of these around with me everywhere I go? No. Don't be silly. I would never take this in the shower. So with this, I can really get some control over that. This would really help you on this project, right? Since you're trying to get rid of those lines, this is a really easy way to get rid of lines. Once again, we got our line up at the top. What are we gonna have to do? We're gonna have to add some value. So our value's got to be darker than our cylinder. Almost forgot about this. It's got to be darker than our cylinder, but lighter than our shadows, right? Than some of our shadows, at least. See how I'm making that line disappear? So that's what you're going to be doing today. And I'm going to try to wrap this up really quick because I want most of the class to be there for you to execute this drawing. They're due today. And if you're like me, you learn more by doing. In college, I would learn as much in the summer as I did during the school year for art because I would just paint all summer long. All right, so there we go. We've gotten rid of our lines over here. Let me try and clean this up again since my eraser did such a horrible job earlier. That helped a little. I don't know if anything will ever perfect it. Anything will ever help ever again. But that's pretty close. So there we go. I've turned 3 flat objects, 2 flat shapes into 3D form. I've turned two semblances of form that were created with line, and I got rid of the line completely, all except for implied line, and created these forms with value instead. All right, so that's what we want to do in our drawings today. All right, everyone, that's the demo for today. I hope that helps. Until next time.